Hey, it's Yazuki Wolf, and we're going to be continuing today with our Japanese cell shading series. And this is kind of departing a little bit from the cell shading area. I mean, we're starting with the general cell shaded illustration, but I just wanted to try one last thing that we can do with this, and we're going to kind of push it toward the Atsunuri side. For those who didn't watch my original video, Atsunuri is the more non-linear type of illustration that's fully fully rendered. And we're not going to go completely fully rendered because we still have actual cell shaded areas in this. But yeah, actually, if we have time, maybe I'll try converting those as well. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to try to get rid of these lines. Now, if we just take the line layer and turn the eyeball off, it doesn't quite do what we want. That's not quite what we want. We don't want it to have to work with something like this. Depending on your illustration, you may have very defined like edges that work well, and you could just turn your lines off. But with this particular illustration, it didn't go that way. So let's figure out how we can clean this up. So this is a little messy, and if you can think of a better way to do this, please let me know, because I'm still kind of like learning this myself and experimenting. This isn't something I actually learned in school here. It's just something that I've found myself do from time to time when I want to convert a line drawing into a more complete, what would you call it, a rendered illustration. And what that is that I take my line work here, and I have my lines in one folder. You may just have it in one layer. Either way is fine. I'm marking that with a blue color for my layer here, so you can see in the video. And I'm going to make another layer on top. Actually, no. Okay, this is a little tricksy way to do this. So in order to keep some consistency with my colors, I'm going to first turn off all my all the layers except for my base colors. So any of the shadows, highlights, any of those, I'm just going to turn those off for right now. And probably for a better workflow, maybe it would work better if we did this ahead of time. But we're backtracking a little bit to go back to our original state of just the base colors. There we go. And now I'm going to actually copy, holding Control each time I select a new layer. I'm going to select each of those base colors. I think I got all of them, probably. And so copy those and paste them on top of my line work. And we're not quite done yet though. So I'm going to I'm not sure if this works in Photoshop. Give it a try, let me know. But I'm going to make a folder and place the folder on top of my line work. And I'm actually going to turn that folder into masking layer. Is that the right word? What's this called? Oh, not masking layer. It's a clipping layer. Yeah. So it's going to clip into the line work. Then I'm going to take all those layers that I just pasted, and I'm going to put that inside the folder. So now all of the it's hard for you to see exactly what's happening here, because it just looks like I just have all the colors on top. But if I turn the shading back down on here, you can see that the shading still comes up, but the lines are completely covered up. So the lines are completely covered up with the base colors. So all my lines should be my base colors. And in some cases, this may be completely finished for you, but in my case, you can see that there are areas that were not included in there. So I'm just going to go through here layer by layer and clean that up. So we're starting off with our skin tone. I'm going to hold Alt to select the skin tone and draw over that. There you go. And this is pretty it should be consistent because I'm selecting the base color and drawing with the base color, so that should give me a nice basic palette to start with. Right, and moving up to, I think my next layer was her kind of purple clothing. So we're gonna fill in the edges of that, like so. Being careful here where I know that I have the skin color underneath. I don't want to go over the skin tone here, so I'm gonna keep the skin tone where it is and just have the clothing area only. There's some weird stuff going on here that I may have to clean up later. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but we'll figure that out probably on a later phase. Yeah, especially around the hands here, it's kind of detailed, but something like that would probably work. And once again, this is kind of messy. I don't know if this is necessarily the best way to do this. For me, it's the way I've been doing lately, but if you have a better method, please let me know in the comments below. The comments section below. Okay, let's move on to our next color. What is this? Oh, that's white. Okay, there we go. So fill in these white areas. And then the kind of nice thing about having these in layers as opposed to doing it in one layer, I mean, you could do it all in one layer, I think, as well. But since I have it in layers, I know that, for example, I'm going to do blue later, so I don't have to worry too much about painting outside of the line if I'm going over blue. Still have to be careful about painting over the skin tones, because I know the skin tones are on the bottom layer anyways. Oh, and it looks like something going on here we have to kind of fix. Don't know if I want... don't think I want that bleeding in there, so I want this to be a pretty consistent circle. So I'm going to delete some of that. There we go. Okay, and back to the white. Also, if you feel like you're losing track of where you want to fill in with the colors, you can create a guide to your line for yourself by taking this clip layer folder and dropping the opacity just a little bit so that you can see what's underneath. That should work. So now I'm back to this layer. The only trade-off with that is it might be a little bit tougher to see where you're filling, but I mean, if you look closely, you should be able to tell. It just gives you a little bit of a guide of where the original line work was, so you can follow that if you need to. I have mine down to 90%, so you don't drop the opacity that much, just enough so that you can see the line starting to come through, and that should be enough. And once again, I might spend more time on this if this was a professional project, but I may speed it up a little bit so that I can get this video out for you a little bit faster. There we go. Okay, moving on to the red. And now, since I'm pretty close to the top of my layers, I have to be a little bit more careful about overlapping colors, because I don't want to overlap colors that that are underneath this layer, because that's not going to be fixed in the future. And another thing, I think since I have red here already, I might use the red to fill in the lines around her lips, because otherwise they're going to be those lines are going to completely disappear. Yeah, I don't know if the nose should be red. That might just make that. I don't know. We'll keep it red for right now. And I think her the color around her eyes, I'm going to put that in the blue layer with her hair as well. And fill in this here. Looks like one of my friends is buying Albion online. I actually kind of quite interested in that. Looks like the kind of open world, free sandbox type experience that I've been looking for. But I'm going to be going on a trip to America pretty soon, so I won't have time to play right now. So I'm going to wait till I get back. But if any of you are playing that game, please let me know what you think of it. I'm really big on like open worlds. So like my big disappointment with a lot of the MMORPGs I played recently is that they didn't really have enough freedom. You know, it didn't seem like you could really affect the world that much. It seemed like you just have like a certain area where you could fight people, but you know, you win the castle one day and the other team wins the next day, and there's no real long lasting effects. So from what I've seen of Albion, it looks kind of interesting. I may have to check that out. But yeah, let me know. I may do some videos in the future too, where I just kind of draw or render and kind of talk about whatever while I do it. You know, like maybe talk about video games or movies or whatever, all while rendering. I'm not sure what I'll call the series, but I may put some of those up on YouTube. But if they become too long, or if I think that it would be better on like Twitch or something else, I might do that too. But right now I don't really want to do like live streams so much, because I don't think that I'm online at times where many people would be online to actually watch me. You know, since I'm in the other side of the world, it's kind of hard to, with time zones and whatnot. But anyways, all right, so it looks like we got all those filled in pretty well. So obviously that's not going to be the end of it though, because now we're going to go back and bring up all those shadows and highlights that we had earlier. All right, cool. And now there's some places where it's the colors as they are with the base color are going to work, especially with like reflected light. So like say with this arm here, you know, we have the light kind of reflecting from the bottom. That makes sense that would be your base color there. With some of the hair as well. But there are parts where it's not going to quite fit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through each layer, and I'm going to create another layer on top of that and make that a clipping layer of the layer in the clipping folder. Does that make sense? I hope it does. But anyway, so we have each layer that we're just going to put another layer on top of that, another clipping layer on top of that with the shading that I want to. And there's no real exact science to this. I'm just kind of going to look through and see what I think works. Like so we're on her skin tone now, and I'm going to do the shading for her skin tone, which is another layer on top of that. Let's see. I think a lot of this actually works pretty well. Like right here, say we have this highlight color here, so it makes sense to kind of highlight that as well. So I'm going to bring that highlight color into the actual line. And if you don't mind having a little bit of a linear aspect to it, maybe something like that would be fine. But if you want to completely get rid of your line work, then that's right. This is that's because it's there. You go. Yeah. So I forgot that I had a transparency. So now I took away the transparency. So now you see the line work is completely gone. So maybe down here too. I'm gonna use the watercolor a little bit to give it a little bit of gradation, so it's not too stark of a difference. There we go. Is that? Ooh, it looks like I probably wanted her clothing to fill that in. So let's go ahead back to her clothing layer. I want this to be the clothing color. There we go. And you'll probably find a lot of things like that while you're going, that like, oh, this should have been that color, or that should have been that color, or something like that. And then you just kind of correct it as you go. So for clothing layer, let's maybe make that a little darker there, maybe some shading on the bottom. They're very like detailed stuff here, and it may take you a while to go through. So I'm going to speed up a little bit, and then I'll talk about how I progressed. So I'm using the dark shadows here to kind of fill in some of the line work around her ears. In some cases you might actually want to make a darker color than what you already had there. And once again, using some blending tools as well to make it a little bit more of a gradation at points. Make sure to fill in the shadow areas too, like coming out from the hand. Like down here is probably not going to be that bright. There you go. You can have a little bit of a rim light though, but probably don't want it to be completely like lit there. Yeah, see, I like that how it kind of makes a shadow coming off of the hand there, the finger rather. And you actually don't even need to have all these layers here. Like, see how I have the shadow layer and the base layer here are separate. You could do this probably in one layer each if you wanted to as well. The only reason why I have so many layers separated is because when you're working on your own, you can pretty much look and see if you like it or not, and then move on. But when you're working in a team, a lot of times you might think that, oh, I like this, I like how these colors are working, but then maybe you hand it in and they say, I want this time, take that green part and make it blue or something, or like make the highlights less intense, or make the shadows a little bit darker. And having separate layers kind of allows you to kind of go back and make those very fine-tuned adjustments that may be asked of you. But yeah, like if you're just drawing for yourself, you may not need all that. But when you're in a team, it's always good to have a way to quickly make adjustments and not have to. I mean, if you're good at Photoshop, a lot of times you can figure out how to make changes even when you're talking about like changing a color completely, or like changing like some kind of aspect of the illustration. And if you don't have it separated into separate layers, you may be able to do that with some Photoshop tricks and whatnot. But in general, it's going to save you time if you have it separated into layers. I mean, I've actually had some times where they'll actually come to my desk and they'd say, "Hey, do you think what I think it would look better if the shadows there were less intense." And having it in separate layers, I could be like, so these shadows are too intense. Okay, I click there and I just lower the opacity. Like, how about that? And they're like, okay. And it's like they're able to decide right then and there, and it lets you move on and get your work done. But yeah, that's just a part of that thing. All right, so that's coming along fairly okay. Obviously, you want the area around her eyes to probably be the darkest. And I think I'm actually probably going to go over this with a little bit of black just to kind of approach that the original kind of darkness of the actual line art. And I don't like how it looks like my green layer is on top of the. Let me take the green there and put it below my blue. There we go. That's probably better. There we go. Okay. So I put the iris is underneath the blue, so I can fill that in like so. And it's a little too pronounced, so I'm kind of shaded a little bit with some gradation. That should work. All right, and now, well, actually, now that I look at it, maybe the green should be on top. Yeah, I think the green should be on top because I want to make the area around her eyes green. So let's just erase this here. That's kind of getting in the way. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the dark green color and fill in all the sides of this with that dark green. Yeah, that's quite a bit better. It looks a little awkward to have the blue there. Alright, so that's pretty much that. I'm just going to do another layer on the very top with a really dark kind of grayish color and so I'm just going to make this as dark. The areas that I want to be the darkest, I'm just going to fill in with this dark gray color, almost black but not quite black. And then I'm probably going to lower the opacity afterwards, so I'm keeping it very dark right now just so I can see where it is, but I'll probably lower the opacity of that later. There we go. Okay, so now let's lower that opacity somewhere about there. Yeah, it looks about right. All right, cool. So I guess that's about that. Actually, I think I want some more highlights in her hair maybe. So let's take this and kind of highlight the area around there. That looks okay. I mean, honestly, I probably would spend a lot more time on this regularly because you may be able to notice that now that the line art is gone, the contrast in her face doesn't feel as strong anymore. So I probably would go back and do some more shading into her face to kind of fix that. But for the purpose of this video, I think that works. So there we go. That's the illustration with the line art disappeared. So line art, no line art, line art, no line art. And yeah, and if you want to continue toward Atsunuti, I would definitely go back in and bump up some of the shading. I wonder if I could do something real quick. There we go. I just bumped up the shading just a little bit, so you get kind of an idea of what it could end up being like. There still is an issue because we're going from a very flat 2D image to, once you get rid of the lines, it immediately makes it more three-dimensional, or it feels like it needs to be more three-dimensional. So that's why I feel like the shading is kind of not quite up to par now that the lines are gone. So I definitely want to go in more and do more with it. But you get the general gist of it. So that was with all the line art, and then once you take the line art away. Maybe in one of the future videos I might do a full-on Atsunuti where we go from start to finish without with the end goal of being a completely rendered, like, non-linear drawing. But I think for that we'll probably have to start with a new drawing. So I think that will be the end of how far we take this particular illustration. So that's all for the Japan cell shading series. If you have any other questions, let me know, and I may make future videos based on your questions in the future. But for now, that's it. Till next time, yoroshiku.